Today we're going to talk about the Fire Nation, but did you hear that? I'm getting an incoming transmission from the Templin Institute. They cover factions, nations, and organizations from many different alternate worlds, and they also go into the legendary figures, places, and conflicts from these same worlds, and I'm reading here that they have a report on the Fire Nation, which I think would be prudent for you to see, and funnily enough, I just sent them a transmission. So, be sure after this to go head over to their channel, subscribe, and you will see me discussing the story of Detroit Become Human and the meaning of its cautionary tale.
Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when rapid industrialization, technological advancement, and shifts in demographics caused the Fire Nation to attack. In the eras since the manifestation of the physical realm, after humanity departed the safety of the colossal lion turtles, the Fire Nation grew to become one of the four great countries of the world. Sole keepers of the firebending arts, its peoples embraced the character of their namesake, growing strong, dynamic, and bold. They claimed dominion over the volcanic island chains of the Western Hemisphere, and the ancient Sun Warriors became the first true firebenders, mastering their technique with the help of the dragons. Able to manipulate the energy around them to create and direct fire, the practitioners of this elemental art would grow to become the key cultural, economic, and military force across the islands. The decline of the Sun Warriors' civilization led to the rise of petty warlords, who challenged one another across their many islands. One such tyrant was Taz, infamous for his harsh and brutal rule. His acts of malice towards the populace angered the spirit world, and the souls of his victims, known as the Kamurakage, returned to haunt the warlords and their subjects alike. The name of the one who finally brought the warlords to justice and united the islands of the Fire Nation has been lost to the ages, known to history as simply the First Fire Lord. Under his guidance, the pain caused by the warlord system was healed, and the Kamurakage had no place in the era of peace that followed. A member of the mystical Fire Sages, an ancient religious order within the islands, he served as both the political and spiritual leader of the nation. With the discovery of the other great countries, the Fire Nation began competing with its new rivals. It prospered under centuries of peace, but in times of peril, wars of conquest were not unknown. When the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation's largest competitor, was rocked by civil war, the Fire Nation entered the first tentative years of a great industrial revolution. The country's industrial strength and economic power skyrocketed, and the Fire Nation became an undisputed global hegemony, while the rest of the world remained locked by tradition. Its population moved to the cities, creating new hubs of industry, culture, and enlightenment. In this time of progress, the newly inaugurated Fire Lord Sozin became convinced it was the destiny of the Fire Nation to unify a global empire under his rule. His ambitions led to an enormous militarization program and reforms that subsumed the authority of the Fire Sages beneath his own. Taking advantage of the depleted and exhausted state of the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation successfully annexed several coastal territories, establishing local colonies that quickly became centers of industry themselves. These gains represented only a fraction of what the Fire Nation hoped to achieve, but when the Avatar, master of all four elements, learned of these acts of aggression, he was forced to intervene. Charged with keeping the world in balance, Avatar Roku forced Fire Lord Sozin to abandon his plans and renounce his designs for the rest of the world. Their differences on this issue and the subsequent duel that ensued between the two created a rift that would never heal. When Roku perished in a volcanic eruption, Sozin was able to resume his plans. Tragically, Roku and Sozin had once been childhood friends, but the threat posed by the Avatar was one the Fire Lord could not ignore, and he grew determined to prevent the Avatar's return. The conflict that would become known as the 100-Year War commenced with the arrival of Sozin's comet, an event that would greatly enhance the power of firebenders the world over. In the opening strike, the Fire Nation launched a surprise attack on the air nomads, a move designed to wipe out one of the world's great nations and prevent the Avatar from being reincarnated among them. Roku's previous intervention had delayed the implementation of the attack, and while large swaths of territory were seized from the Earth Kingdom and Water Tribes, a swift victory was no longer possible. Resistance was fierce, and as the war dragged on, the government of the Fire Nation grew increasingly autocratic. After Sozin's death, his son Azulon inherited his father's war and introduced further reforms to sustain popular support on the home front. The nation's own history was distorted to provide a greater sense of patriotism, and the populace was subjected to increasing restrictions on political and personal expression. While the original goals of the war had ostensibly been to share the Fire Nation's prosperity and wealth, under Azulon, they developed a new, ethnocentric ideology. The Fire Nation was portrayed in propaganda as inherently superior, the rightful rulers of all the peoples of the world. Resources and technology developed from conquered regions supported this view, and the Fire Nation pioneered several new innovations in this era, including the railway, steamship, and airship. Upon the ascension of Firelord Ozai, nearly a century of war had taken its toll on the Fire Nation economy. The Earth Kingdom remained a powerful opponent, with even the famed General Iroh, the Dragon of the West, unable to subdue Ba Sing Se, its fortress capital. Although technological developments continued, it came at the expense of the nation's citizenry, forced to live in rising poverty. The discovery that the annihilation of the air nomads had failed to prevent the reincarnation of the Avatar would prove to be the turning point in the war. While the final offensives of the Fire Nation succeeded in all but destroying the Southern Water Tribe and successfully occupied the last remaining Earth Kingdom strongholds of Omashu and Ba Sing Se, a growing coalition moved to counter and erase these victories. As the Fire Nation prepared for the return of Sozin's Comet, the remnants of the Northern and Southern Water Tribes, the Earth Kingdom, and the Ancient Order of the White Lotus massed their forces to counterattack Ba Sing Se. Convinced that Sozin's Comet would grant him complete victory, Firelord Ozai proclaimed himself the first Phoenix King, bestowing the title of Firelord to his daughter and youngest child, Azula. Their rule was short-lived. In mere days, Ozai had been defeated by Avatar Aang, and Ba Sing Se liberated. Rule of the Fire Nation passed to Ozai's son Zuko, who declared the war over. Firelord Zuko committed the nation to earn back the goodwill and friendship of the world's other great countries. Amidst a general demilitarization, and together with his close friend Avatar Aang, he also granted independence to the Fire Nation colonies, establishing the United Republic of Nations. In this new country, citizens from all four nations could live together in harmony. This was solidified in an enormous statue commissioned by the Fire Nation after the passing of Avatar Aang, a physical symbol of their desire for reconciliation and peace. This desire for international cooperation has extended to the highest levels of the Fire Nation's government. At the height of the 100-Year War, the Fire Nation existed as an absolute monarchy, with the military given sweeping political powers. Reforms implemented by Zuko have weakened the position of Firelord, and the destructive Agni Kai, a ceremonial firebender duel, no longer plays any role in determining the appointment or qualification of the royalty or the aristocracy. Power has also returned to the Fire Sages, still the highest religious authority in the nation. While the Fire Nation was once an ecclesiocracy under their rule, they became wholly subservient to the state during the 100-Year War, relinquishing even their ancient role in the Avatar cycle. Now they have resumed their more traditional duties, serving the Fire Lord as advisors, but loyal to the Avatar above all. While substantially weakened when compared to the status it enjoyed during the war, the Fire Nation military continues to be a core part of their society. The army is manned by both firebender and normal foot soldiers, and has become increasingly mechanized as technology advances. The Fire Navy is the largest and most powerful in the world, and the design of its warships has led the world in their sophistication and efficiency for over a century. The Air Force is the youngest of the armed services, and the first of its kind in the world. While initially comprised of observation balloons, it has since grown to include dozens of powerful airships and fixed-wing aircraft. Elite forces include the highly skilled Union Archers and the Southern Raiders Battle Group. These are both specialized forces operating as component services within the Army and Navy respectively, granted unique weaponry, equipment, and trusted with only the most dangerous or important objectives. The prevailing character of the Fire Nation remains intrinsically linked to their element, something neither the winds of history, war, or reform could ever change. Fire is reflected in the nation's architecture, fashion, and even its cuisine. Respect and honor endure as essential values. This expresses itself across gender, and the Fire Nation is largely unique in allowing both men and women to serve in all areas of the state. Across its history, the Fire Nation has acted on the belief that unity, centralism, and strict order are the best means to ensure stability and prosperity. Under the right leadership, this can bring forth abundance, but when corrupted, can turn the nation into a despotic force of destruction. Like fire itself, it has the potential to both create or destroy, and a Fire Lord must be the master of this element for the nation to truly prosper.